It happened on the kind of morning that makes you forget anything bad could ever happen. I had just finished arranging fresh-cut tulips in the window of my flower shop, Ivy and Bloom, a little corner space I'd opened 6 years ago in the heart of Rosewood Street. The town was small enough that you learned the names of your customers, but not so small that you couldn't disappear into your own routine. And I liked it that way. Predictable. Controlled. Safe. The bell above the door jingled as a regular Mrs. Ellery, left with her usual bouquet of hydrangeas and her usual complaints about the humidity. I was turning back toward the counter when I saw him through the glass. He was standing just outside. Staring. Not in the casual, what a lovely shop kind of way. No, his eyes were locked on me like I'd just risen from the dead. I froze. He looked mid-40s. Neatly dressed in a button-down shirt and tailored jeans. The kind of man who had once been handsome and still clung to the structure of it. He stepped forward slowly like approaching a wounded animal, or a ghost. The door opened. And everything inside me tensed. "Emmeline," he said, voice cracking. I blinked. "Excuse me." He inhaled like he'd just resurfaced from underwater. "Oh my God, it's really you." I laughed, the tight, confused kind of laugh that doesn't sound like amusement. "I think you have the wrong person." But he didn't blink. Didn't move. He just stared. "You don't recognize me?" he asked softly, like the idea of that physically hurt. "No," I replied carefully. "I'm sorry." His hands began to tremble. "It's me, Nathan. I've been looking for you for 8 years." My brain went white. "Nathan? My name is Lily Mercer. I've lived in Ashcroft for nearly a decade. I run a small flower shop. I have a dog named Bowie and a cat who thinks he's better than both of us. I make fresh pasta on Sundays. I've never been married. I've never had children. I've never even left the country." But the way this man said my name, not Lily but Emmeline, made the back of my neck go cold. "I'm not who you think I am," I said again, firmer this time. He stepped closer, his voice shaking. "You disappeared, Emmeline. You left in the middle of the night. No note. No warning. I thought you were dead. I think you should go," I interrupted, adrenaline making my voice harder than I intended. "Yow." He reached into his coat and I took a step back, but he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a photograph. And the moment I saw it, the world tilted sideways. It was me. Standing in a sunlit garden, barefoot in a white dress, laughing. A man's arm around my waist. A boy, 6 or 7, in front of me, grinning, missing his 2 front teeth. Me. But not me. I stared at the image, my breath caught in my throat. The woman in the photo had the same eyes. Same jawline. Same dimple in the left cheek. Same small scar just beneath the chin. The one I got in college when I slipped on ice and cracked my jaw on a metal railing. That scar doesn't lie. That scar can't be coincidental. I looked up. Nathan was watching me like someone seeing their life return to them in a dream. "She still wears her hair like that," he said, voice breaking. "You always hated bangs, remember?" "I'm not Emmeline," I whispered. But this time even I didn't believe myself. He stepped back then. Not out of fear. But sadness. Like something inside him was sinking. "I don't know what happened to you," he said. "But please just tell me this. Do you remember your son?" My mouth opened. Nothing came out. I don't. I tried again. But the words didn't make sense. As something inside me was unraveling. He left quietly, the bell above the door jangling like any other customer. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I just stood there staring at the photo he left behind on the counter. And in that moment my world stopped being safe. Not because a stranger walked into my store. But because I wasn't entirely sure he was a stranger. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I made tea. Lit candles. Played the sleep playlist I hadn't touched since last winter. Nothing worked. Because every time I closed my eyes I saw her face. My face. In that photo, barefoot in a garden holding a child I didn't know but who, terrifyingly, seemed to know me. By morning I had the picture memorized. Not just the people in it, the details. The curved archway of vines behind them. A wooden swing in the background, slightly out of focus. The corner of a blue ceramic bird bath. These weren't just props. These were memories. Except, they weren't mine. I didn't go to the shop the next day. I called in claiming a migraine. My assistant Lacey didn't ask questions, she knew I hated being checked on. I stayed in bed, the photo lying on the dresser across from me like a riddle I couldn't solve. Sometime around noon I did something I swore I wouldn't. I googled her. Or rather me. Emmeline Ward, missing Ashcroft woman. I wasn't ready for what I found. A dozen articles. Local woman vanishes without a trace. Husband pleads for public help. Young son left behind. No sign of foul play, but no note, no explanation. A case gone cold. There was even a podcast episode. I didn't click on it. I couldn't. But there was, her name. Emmeline June Ward. Disappeared October 17th, 8 years ago. The same month I moved to Ashcroft. The same month I changed my name to Lily Mercer. My stomach flipped. I pulled open the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet and stared at the folder inside. The one labeled Illinois. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside. My old ID, college transcripts, tax forms, a worn envelope with a return address I never intended to see again. All under the name June Ellis. That's who I used to be. Not Emmeline Ward. Not Lily Mercer. June. I stared at the photo again. The eyes. The smile. The damned scar. I had no memory of that man, Nathan. No memory of a husband. Or a child. But the scar, that wasn't something you fake. Neither was the garden. Because I'd seen it before. Not in a dream. In a painting. There was a small antique shop on Pine Street. I'd wandered in one rainy Saturday years ago and found a canvas that stopped me cold. A garden bathed in golden light, with a swing hanging from a crooked tree. I bought it on impulse and hung it in my bedroom. I always told myself I liked it because it felt peaceful. Now I wasn't so sure. Could memories come back like that? Through objects? Through strangers? Or worse, what if they weren't memories at all? What if they were the truth finally leaking through the cracks? I was still staring at the file when I heard it. A knock at the door. 3 short raps. I froze. No one visits me unannounced. Not here. Not ever. I stood slowly, barely breathing, and crossed the room. Through the peephole I saw no one. But on the welcome mat lay an envelope. No name. No address. Just one word handwritten in block letters. Remember. The envelope was light. No stamp, no seal, just the word. Remember. Scrawled in capital letters like a warning. Or a plea. I brought it inside, laid it on the kitchen counter, and stared at it like it might detonate. My hands hovered, then pulled away. What exactly was I afraid of? That I'd open it and find something I couldn't explain? Or worse, something I could? Eventually I sliced it open with a paring knife. Inside, a single Polaroid. Grainy. Faded. But unmistakable. A child's drawing. Crayon on construction paper. It had once been taped to a fridge, I could tell. The marks were still on the corners. The drawing showed 3 stick figures. A woman with long dark hair, a tall man with a square head, and a boy holding both their hands. Underneath, in shaky, oversized letters. Me, Mommy, and Daddy. I love us. There was something written on the back. He still draws you sometimes. I dropped the photo like it burned. Whoever left this, they'd been inside the memory. Inside my house, or Emmeline's. Or June's. I didn't even know anymore. And they weren't just watching. They wanted me to feel it. That night I couldn't bring myself to turn off the lights. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the painting of the garden, feeling like it was staring back. There's a moment just before sleep, when your mind slips sideways unguarded, and that's when it hit me. The swing in the garden. The bluebird bath. The cracked stepping stone shaped like a heart. I knew this place. It wasn't just a painting. It was real. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. I didn't search for Emmeline. I didn't search for Nathan. Instead, I searched for the address that had been written on that envelope in my old Illinois file. My past. The one I'd buried under a fake name and a polite smile. The house was still there. 108 Hawthorne Lane. Bloomfield, Illinois. I clicked into Street View and there it was. The garden. A little older, a little wilder, but still recognizable. I zoomed in until the swing came into frame. Still hanging. Still waiting. My chest tightened. I could almost hear laughter in the wind. Mine, or someone else's, I couldn't tell. I closed the laptop and just sat there. I wanted to believe this was all some elaborate mistake. That Nathan had confused me for a woman who looked like me. That the Polaroid was some cruel trick. That my life was my own. But now the lie was wearing thin. And I couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there was testing me, waiting to see how much I remembered, or how long I could keep pretending not to. The next morning I packed a bag. Just one. Not too full. Not like I was leaving forever. Just enough to suggest I'd be back. I left a note for Lacey asking her to cover the shop through the weekend. I didn't offer details. What could I even say? Hey, turns out I might be someone else entirely. Might have a missing child. Might have faked my own death. Bearby. Well, this wasn't something I could explain. This was something I had to confront. I filled Bowie's food bowl. Told the cat not to destroy the sofa while I was gone. Double-checked the locks on the back door. Then I slid into my car, turned the key and pulled onto the highway heading east. Toward a past I didn't remember. Toward a house I wasn't sure I'd ever lived in. Toward a name I had tried so hard to forget. Emmeline. The sound of it in my head no longer felt foreign. It felt like the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. The drive to Bloomfield was long and mostly silent. I didn't put on music. Didn't call anyone. Didn't listen to podcasts like I usually did to fill the noise. I just let the hum of the tires on the asphalt drown out my thoughts. Or tried to. But every mile brought them back louder. What if he's right? What if I did leave a child behind? What kind of person does that? By the time I turned onto Hawthorne Lane, my stomach was knotted so tight I thought I might be sick. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Small houses with wide porches and chain-link fences. Maple trees already browning at the edges. Bikes left out in front yards. It felt like a place where lives kept moving forward. With or without you. And then there it was. 108 Hawthorne Lane. 2 stories. Pale yellow siding. A porch swing that creaked in the breeze. And behind it, just barely visible over the fence, the garden from the painting. I parked across the street and just stared at it for a long time. My hands refused to move. Because part of me was still hoping this would be it. The moment I realized it was all a coincidence. That I didn't belong here. That I could go back to my flower shop, my dog, my safe, quiet life. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Not after the photo. Not after the drawing. Not after the name started to feel real again. Emmeline. I crossed the street slowly. My feet felt like they were moving through wet cement. There were no for sale signs. No signs of vacancy. Someone lived here. Maybe they lived here. I didn't know what I'd say if they answered the door. Hi, I think I used to live here. With you. Also, I may have been your wife. Or mother. Depending. Insanity. But I raised my hand to knock anyway. Before I could, the door opened. And there he was. Nathan. He looked even more tired than the last time I saw him. Not angry. Not shocked. Just too drained. Like he'd spent all his grief already and was living in the hangover of it. I knew you'd come, he said quietly. I didn't answer. Behind him the house looked lived in but careful. Nothing out of place. Every pillow fluffed, every light bulb replaced. The kind of home someone keeps when they're waiting for something. Or someone. Is he here? I asked before I could stop myself. Nathan nodded once. He's at school. But, yes. A long silence stretched between us. Then I stepped over the threshold. The air inside the house smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent. Familiar. Painfully so. My knees nearly gave out. Nathan closed the door behind me. I stood in the entryway, unsure whether to run or throw up or collapse. Everything felt wrong and familiar at the same time. Like trying on a sweater you haven't worn in years that still fits perfectly but smells like someone else. He motioned toward the kitchen. Do you want tea? Coffee? I shook my head. No. I don't know what I want. He studied me for a moment, then turned toward a doorway at the end of the hall. Come with me. I followed him in silence. Past the living room. Past a hallway lined with framed photos, some of which made me flinch. There she was again. Me but younger. Softer. With a warmth I no longer recognized. He led me into a small room off the back of the house. A den maybe once. Now it was something else. He opened a cabinet and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside were notebooks. Photos. A child's artwork. A birthday card with a cartoon T-Rex on the front. And a drawing. Another one. Stick figures. This time just 2. A boy and a woman. But the woman had no face. He used to draw you all the time, Nathan said quietly. But when you didn't come back the faces stopped. It's like he forgot how. I blinked hard, fighting a sudden sharp ache behind my eyes. Nathan, I said, barely able to form the words. I don't remember any of this. Not the house. Not you. Not our son, he said for me. Gently, not accusatory. I nodded, ashamed. He sat down on the edge of the couch, running a hand through his hair. After you disappeared, I thought maybe you'd had a breakdown. Or an accident. But there were no signs. Your wallet was gone. Your car was gone. And I knew you wouldn't leave without a reason. Are you sure? I whispered. He looked at me then. Really looked. And something shifted in his eyes. Not recognition. Not suspicion. Grief. And maybe guilt? I didn't tell the whole truth, he admitted. To the police. Or to the press. I told them you were happy. That our life was good. But it wasn't, was it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I still didn't know. He stood and walked toward the back window where the garden glowed in the afternoon light. You planted tulips under the swing, he said. Said you liked the idea of something blooming where children play. That made me sink into the couch like my bones gave out. Because I did like that idea. I still do. I say the same thing to customers every spring. My hands started shaking. I don't know who I am, I said. I don't know what's real. But that photo. I pointed at the Polaroid he'd left. That child. If he's mine. He is, Nathan said simply. And he doesn't know you're alive. The weight of it hit like a truck. Alive. That's what I was now. A ghost with a pulse. A mother without a memory. A woman who walked away from something she maybe once loved and forgot why. And now, she was back. He came home at 3:42 p.m. I know the exact time because I was staring at the clock, willing the hands to stop. As if time could pause long enough for me to prepare for whatever was about to happen. I sat in the den where Nathan left me. The box of memories was closed now, but it might as well have been glowing. I kept glancing at it like it might move on its own. Footsteps on the porch. A key turning. A backpack hitting the floor. Then a voice. Dad, we had to run in gym today and Mr. Kellerman made us do. Silence. I heard him pause. Something had changed. He felt it. Dad? He called again, this time warier. Whose car is that outside? Nathan's voice, quiet but steady. Hey buddy. There's someone here I want you to meet. I stood before I realized I'd moved. My legs were trembling. My palms cold. Then he stepped into the room. And everything in me locked in place. He was taller than I expected. Not a little boy anymore. A slender, sharp-featured 11-year-old with dark blonde hair and blue-gray eyes that looked like they had questions he hadn't learned how to ask yet. He looked at me the way someone looks at a stranger who just said their name. This is Lily, Nathan said gently, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. But she used to be someone else. The boy tilted his head. What do you mean? She's Emmeline, Nathan said softly. Your mom. He froze. Not dramatically, just entirely. As if someone had unplugged him. His eyes didn't move. His lips didn't part. He just stared. And so did I. Because I didn't feel anything maternal. No wave of instinct. No thunderclap of recognition. But still, somewhere in the center of me, something small cracked. A tiny fault line I didn't know was there. I don't remember, I said, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know. Not until a few days ago. And I still don't know how or why I left. But I swear I never forgot you on purpose. He looked at Nathan, not me. She doesn't remember me? Nathan shook his head. But she came back. Yes, Nathan said. She came back. Silence. The boy looked at me again, really looked. And something in his face shifted. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But recognition. Like when you walk into a room you haven't seen since childhood and suddenly remember where the lamp used to sit. You have that scar, he said quietly. I blinked. What? He pointed. Under your chin. You said you got it when you hit your face on a swing. I used to touch it when I was little. I thought it meant you were a superhero. I almost broke right then and there. Because that wasn't the kind of memory you could fake. That was real. A tiny hand reaching up to touch your chin. A story told 100 times. A scar passed down through love. What's your name? I asked. He looked confused. You don't know. I shook my head, eyes burning. He hesitated, then said, It's Jonah. And just like that, the name dropped into my chest like an anchor. Jonah. Something old and sacred stirred in the back of my mind. I didn't remember lullabies or birthdays or the way his hair smelled after a bath. But I remembered the name. Even if just for a second. Jonah, I repeated. He nodded. I sat down slowly, afraid to get too close. I understand if you don't want to talk to me. Or see me. Or ever. Can I ask something? He interrupted. Yes. Anything. Why'd you leave? The question was too big. Too raw. It hit harder than any accusation could have. Not because it was angry, but because it wasn't. He just wanted to understand. I don't know, I said honestly. I wish I did. But I'm here now. I'm trying to put things back together. Jonah didn't speak. Just walked over to the bookshelf, pulled something from the bottom shelf and came back. A shoebox. He opened it. Inside were paper scraps, photos, ticket stubs and small trinkets, none of which I recognized. But he held them like they mattered. This is my memory box, he said. I used to put stuff in it when I missed you. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from crying. You kept it. Even when everyone said you weren't coming back. Nathan stepped out then. Quietly. Gave us space. Jonah sat across from me, opened the box wider, and picked up a tiny bracelet made of colored beads. This used to be yours, he said. I found it behind the couch once. You said it was lucky. I took it carefully, my fingers trembling. I don't remember it, I admitted. He shrugged like that was okay. You can have it again if you want. And in that moment something in me finally broke. Not from pain. Not from fear. From grace. Because this boy, who should have hated me, was offering me a second chance. Quietly. Without fanfare. Without demands. Just an open door. I didn't deserve it. But I wasn't going to waste it. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear or even confusion, though both were there. It was something else. Something I didn't have words for yet. A kind of buzzing under my skin. Like my body remembered something my mind still refused to touch. Jonah had gone to bed after dinner, offering me a quick, quiet good night, like he'd always known how to be gentle with breakable things. Nathan hadn't said much after that. We sat in the living room for an hour, not talking, pretending we weren't watching each other. He offered to let me stay in the guest room, said it used to be mine. The sheets smelled faintly of lavender. The walls were pale blue. There was a crack in the ceiling above the bed shaped like a bird in flight. And none of it felt familiar. Except for one thing, the photograph on the nightstand. A black and white image in a silver frame. A woman, me presumably, sitting on a bench staring straight into the camera. She didn't smile. She didn't look happy. She looked haunted. I stared at that photo for a long time. And then when the house was silent, I got up and began to search. Not to snoop. To remember. I walked the halls barefoot, each creak in the floorboard triggering some vague echo I couldn't place. I paused at the linen closet. The laundry room. The kitchen. Nothing. Then I opened the basement door. It smelled of dust and paint thinner. The wooden stairs groaned beneath my feet. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows. It looked like any ordinary basement. Tool bench, water heater, storage boxes. Until I saw the door. Not a full door, just a small one low in the corner behind a stack of paint cans. Almost like a crawl space. Or a closet for things no one wanted to look at anymore. I cleared the space and pulled it open. Inside was a trunk. Heavy metal old. The kind of thing someone might hide because they didn't want it found. It wasn't locked. The lid creaked when I opened it. Inside, clothes. Women's clothes. I couldn't be sure. A journal wrapped in plastic. And at the bottom, a phone. One of those old pre-smartphone models. Dusty. Dead. I pulled out the journal first. The first page was blank. So was the second. I flipped through 10 more. Then I reached a page that wasn't. One sentence. Scrawled in black ink. If you're reading this, then I'm still gone. I sat down on the cold basement floor, heart pounding. The next page. I don't trust Nathan anymore. Suddenly the walls felt closer. Each sentence after that grew more erratic. More fearful. He checks my phone. He says I'm imagining things. He told me if I ever left, he'd take Jonah and I'd never see him again. I think he's drugging me. I stopped reading. Not because I didn't want to know more. As I already did. My hands were shaking. The person who wrote this, Emmeline, had been afraid. Trapped. She didn't just walk away. She escaped. And now I was back. Back in his house. In his walls. Next to his locked basement. Sleeping in the room she tried to leave behind. I took the phone and the journal and crept back upstairs, heart thudding. In the guest room I closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the phone. If I could charge it. If it still worked. If the texts were still there. I didn't sleep at all. Because suddenly, Nathan wasn't the grieving husband who lost his wife. He might be the reason she disappeared in the first place. By 5 a.m. I was still staring at the phone. It hadn't turned on. The charger I had in my bag didn't fit. Of course not. It was a model at least 10 years old, maybe more. Obsolete. Like someone wanted it to disappear with time. I waited until the sun began to edge over the trees, then quietly slipped out the door with the phone wrapped in my sweater. There was a strip mall down the road, one of those places that has everything and nothing all at once. A dry cleaner, a vape shop, a tiny hardware store, and thankfully a tech repair booth squeezed between two nail salons. The guy behind the counter looked up from his energy drink like I'd interrupted something important in his video game. "Can I help you?" I placed the phone on the counter. "I need to charge this. Or recover anything from it. Messages, photos. Whatever's still there." He raised an eyebrow. "This thing's practically vintage. Might be corroded. Or wiped." I didn't blink. "Try anyway." He shrugged, took it with one hand and disappeared into the back without asking another question. I waited. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. He came back chewing on a piece of gum like it owed him money. "Well?" I asked. He held up a new battery pack. "Phone's dead. Battery was fried. But the SIM's intact. I cloned it to one of our test units." My heart kicked up. "And?" I asked. He handed me a battered old test phone. On the screen, messages. Hundreds of them. The first thing I saw was a name. "Nathan." I tapped. "Nathan," I said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. But you can't keep threatening to leave every time we fight. Nathan, if you walk out again, don't bother coming back. Nathan, I'm serious, Em. You're not taking Jonah. Don't push me." Each message was worse than the last. Some were cruel. Some were manipulative. Some were heartbreakingly ordinary, as if he believed pretending everything was fine would fix it. But the tone was unmistakable. Control. Possession. Bigger. I scrolled further. Found one from Emmeline. "Emmeline, I've hidden a copy of this phone. If anything happens to me, someone will find it." The breath left my lungs. Because I had found it. I was the backup plan she left for herself. I kept scrolling, heart pounding. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. A message sent at 2:11 a.m. the night before she disappeared. "Nathan, if you do this, I swear I'll ruin you. You'll disappear and no one will ever come looking." That was it. No follow-up. No reply. And after that, nothing. A hard final silence. I looked up at the tech guy who was now scrolling on his phone, uninterested in whatever nuclear bomb I'd just uncovered. "Can you transfer this to a flash drive?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah. For an extra $30. Do it." I waited with my arms crossed, stomach in knots, head spinning. When he handed me the USB drive 10 minutes later, I tucked it into my pocket like it was worth $1 million. Because to me it was worth more than that. It was proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined what I read in that journal. Proof that Nathan was never the man he pretended to be. Proof that Emmeline hadn't just run. She had fled. And now I was back under the same roof as him. Worse, I had let my guard down. I had looked into his eyes and believed even for a moment that maybe he was just a grieving man. Maybe he was trying. Maybe it had all been a mistake. But now the facts were in my hands. There was no maybe anymore. I left the strip mall with the flash drive gripped so tightly in my fist it left marks. And for the first time since coming back, I wasn't just trying to remember. I was ready to confront the man who'd made me forget. I pulled into the driveway just after 9 a.m. The sky was overcast, dull and heavy, the kind of morning that made everything feel like it was holding its breath. I sat in the car for a full minute staring at the house. The same house that once made me feel lost. Now it just made me feel watched. The USB drive in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I walked up the porch steps slowly, deliberately. Each one felt like a choice. Each one said, "I'm not the same woman who left here this morning. I've seen you now, Nathan. All of you." He opened the door before I even knocked. "Hey," he said. I was starting to worry. I looked at him carefully. His voice was calm, warm even. But his eyes were measuring me. "I just needed air," I said. "A walk. Some time. You didn't leave a note." "Neither did Emmeline," I said before I could stop myself. For a moment the mask slipped. Just a fraction. Then it snapped back into place. He stepped aside. "Want coffee?" I nodded. "Sure." We walked into the kitchen like a couple that had done this 100 times. Like we belonged in that space. But now I saw the invisible lines in every corner, where the cracks had been patched too cleanly, where the tension vibrated under polite conversation. He poured 2 mugs, handed me one. I didn't drink. "You okay?" he asked. I looked him dead in the eye. I remembered something. He stiffened just slightly. A breath too quick. A blink too slow. "Oh," he said, careful. "I remembered how she felt," I said. "How scared she was. How trapped." He said nothing. So I continued. "And I remembered the basement. The trunk. The phone." There was the pause. The calculation. He set his mug down gently, but I could see the muscle twitching in his jaw. "You went through the trunk," he said. Not a question. Not surprised. "I found her messages," I said just as evenly. "I found your messages." His mouth opened slightly. Then closed. He looked down at the countertop, exhaled slowly through his nose. "I never meant to hurt you," he said finally. "I was trying to keep the family together. You were spiraling. You were paranoid. I didn't know what else to do." "You threatened her," I said, voice flat. "I loved her," he snapped, louder than I expected. Then softer. "I didn't know how to help her anymore. She was always running. I just wanted her to stay." "Even if that meant locking her down?" I asked. "Erasing her?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked around the counter and leaned against the fridge, folding his arms like he needed to hold himself together. "I knew this day might come," he said. "That you might come back. That some part of you would. But I hoped, maybe if I was kind enough, if I was patient enough, we could rewrite it. Start over. Pretend it didn't go how it did." "You don't get to rewrite it," I said. "You drugged her." His eyes flashed. "I gave her something to help her sleep. She said you made her forget." His silence was answer enough. I stepped back. "You can't stay here," I said quietly. "Not after what I've seen. Not after what Jonah might find out." His head snapped up. "You told him." "Not yet," I said. "But I will. And I'll tell the police too." That landed. His whole body tensed. But he didn't explode. He did something worse. He smiled. A slow, bitter smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You think they'll believe you?" he said. "You think after 8 years in a missing persons case that was dropped, they'll reopen anything based on a few old texts and your selective amnesia?" I didn't blink. "Try me." Another pause. Then just like that, the smile faded. He looked tired. Defeated. But not sorry. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Laid it gently on the counter between us. "What is this?" I asked. "I offer," he said. I unfolded it. It was a custody agreement. Formal. Not legal. But clearly drafted with care. "You take him," Nathan said quietly. "You want to be his mother again? Fine. He deserves that. I'm tired of lying. Tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And what do you get?" He looked me straight in the eye. "You don't press charges. You don't destroy what's left of my life." I stared at the paper. This wasn't a confession. It was a trade. I looked up. "And if I say no?" He shrugged. "Then we both lose." I pocketed the paper without a word. And left the room. I found Jonah in the backyard sitting on the swing under the tree. His sneakers dragged slow circles in the dirt, tracing old patterns I could still feel in my bones, though I didn't remember drawing them. The tulips beneath the swing were gone now, long since withered. In their place was dry earth and scattered leaves, the kind of neglect that happens when something blooms without being noticed. I walked slowly, carefully. He didn't turn around. "I used to sit out here," I said, keeping my voice soft. "For hours. You'd bring your toy dinosaurs and tell them not to bite the flowers." Still no answer. "But one day you said the blue one could bite them. Because he was lonely and that made him act mean." He looked up then. His expression unreadable. That wasn't me, he said. I nodded. I know. A pause stretched between us. Then I sat down in the grass beside the swing, not asking permission, just hoping it would be okay. I remembered more, I said. About Nathan. About who I used to be. It's not everything, but enough. He gripped the ropes of the swing a little tighter. He said you were sick. I looked at him. Do you believe that? I don't know. Honest. Simple. Brutal. He said you forgot us, Jonah added. That it wasn't your fault. It wasn't, I said. But it wasn't an accident either. That got his attention. He stopped swinging. He wanted me to stay, I said. Even when things were bad. Even when I was scared. So he made me forget. Or tried to. You mean, like drugs? I nodded. His jaw clenched. That's illegal. I almost smiled, not because it was funny but because only a child could state something so devastating with such clean logic. Yes, I said. It is. He kicked the dirt again, slower this time. What happens now? He asked. I exhaled. That's kind of up to you. He looked down. I don't know what I want. That's okay, I said. You don't have to decide everything today. You don't have to call me mom. You don't even have to forgive me. But I want you to know I came back for a reason. He looked up, eyes narrowing. What reason? To find out who I am, I said. And to find you. Even if I didn't know it when I left, my heart did. He didn't speak. So I added, you don't have to trust me yet. But I'm not going anywhere. He looked down again. Then quietly asked, do you remember the owl? I blinked. What owl? He pointed to the tree above us. There used to be a carving. You made it when I was little. You said it would protect us while we played. I looked up. There, half hidden under moss and bark, was the shape of an owl. The carving was shallow, faded by years of rain and sun. But it was there. I reached up and brushed my fingers against it. Yeah, I whispered. I remember. He didn't say anything else. But when he got up to go inside, he stopped halfway up the porch steps and turned back. You can stay in my room tonight, he said. If you want. I nodded, throat tight. I'd like that. He didn't smile. But he didn't look away either. Then he disappeared into the house. And I stood there beneath the owl, hands still resting on the tree, wondering if forgiveness always started this quietly, like a swing pushed gently by the wind, waiting for someone to sit back down. The police station in Bloomfield was exactly how I remembered small-town authority buildings to be. Quiet, too bright, and humming with that strange mixture of boredom and tension. Like they were always waiting for something real to happen. I walked through the front doors with the flash drive in my pocket and a script I'd practiced a dozen times in my head. The officer at the desk looked up, surprised to see someone walking in with that kind of purpose before lunch. I need to file a report, I said. It's about a missing person. Or maybe not missing anymore. He raised an eyebrow. Name. Emmeline Ward, I said. She's me. That got his attention. 30 minutes later, I was in a small interview room with a detective named Rachel Anders. Mid-40s, tired eyes, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. She didn't smile, but she listened like someone who had seen too many people crack halfway through a sentence. You're saying you're Emmeline Ward, she said slowly. The same woman reported missing 8 years ago by her husband. Yes. You were never found. I know. And now you're here. With no memory of where you've been. Or why you left. I have some memory now, I said. Enough to know why I disappeared. I slid the flash drive across the table. She plugged it into her laptop and I watched her face change as she read the texts. Her jaw tightened. Her brows knit together. When she got to the message about making me disappear, she looked up sharply. You kept this quiet, she said. I was scared, I admitted. I didn't know who to trust. And now I have a son, I said. And I'm not going to let Nathan keep rewriting this story. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. We'll reopen the case, she said. We'll bring him in for questioning. But you need to understand it's been years. The evidence is old. His defense will be that you left voluntarily. I know, I said. But the texts, the journal, the phone, they prove it wasn't just emotional. He manipulated me. He drugged me. That'll be hard to prove medically after all this time. But not emotionally, I said. And not legally. He threatened me. That's still a crime. She nodded again, slower this time. We'll bring in child services, she added. There'll be a temporary evaluation. They'll talk to your son. Decide next steps. That hit me like ice water. Will they take him away? Not unless they believe he's in danger, she said. But this isn't just about Nathan anymore. You've re-entered a life that legally doesn't know how to handle your return. There's no precedent for this. I'm not here for precedent, I said. I'm here for Jonah. Detective Anders closed her laptop. I'll contact you by tomorrow, she said. And I'll contact Mr. Ward today. I stood, feeling the first real tremor of fear since I walked in. Because now it was real. No longer whispers in my head. No longer a box in a basement. It was on record. It was in motion. I walked out into the sunlight, blinking. By the time I got home, Nathan was already waiting. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, a paper coffee cup in one hand. His smile was too wide. I take it congratulations are in order, he said. I didn't answer. You went to the police, he added, his voice calm. Of course you did. You lied, I said. You kept me from Jonah. You used my past like it belonged to you. I protected you, he snapped. From yourself. From your worst impulses. You drugged me. His expression didn't change. You were unstable. You don't even remember how bad it got. I remember enough now to know I wasn't the problem. He stepped off the porch. I gave you an offer, he said. You should have taken it. I held his stare. This isn't a negotiation anymore. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Do you really think you can just walk back into Jonah's life? After disappearing for years? You think he won't grow up and wonder why you left him in the first place? I'm not leaving again, I said. And if you try to twist this, if you try to poison him against me, I will make sure the courts see everything. Courts, he scoffed. You think this is about courtrooms and custody paperwork? You think the truth wins in stories like ours? I didn't flinch. You should be careful, he added. You might not like what else starts coming back. I smiled. Just slightly. That's the difference between you and me, I said. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. He looked at me for a long time, then turned and walked away, back to his car, back to whatever story he was already rewriting in his head. And I stood there watching him go. The wind moved through the trees, and for the first time since I'd arrived on Hawthorne Lane, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt real. Thought. Ready. Because the past was no longer behind me. It was beside me now. And I wasn't going to run from it again. The final hearing took place 3 weeks later. It was quiet. No reporters. No cameras. Just a sterile courtroom in the county building with flickering fluorescent lights and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Nathan sat at the defendant's table with a lawyer who looked more like a PR manager. He wore a dark suit, freshly shaved, as if appearances might still save him. He didn't look at me. Not once. I sat alone. No lawyer. No need. Detective Anders had walked me through every detail of my statement. The journal, the texts, the basement. The timeline. The slow unraveling of a woman's autonomy, and how it took her nearly a decade to take it back. The judge read through the documentation in silence. When she finally looked up, it was not with sympathy. It was with decision. In light of the evidence provided, the court recognizes Emmeline Ward as legally re-established in her identity, with full custodial rights reinstated as the biological mother of Jonah Ward. All prior agreements submitted by Mr. Nathan Ward are nullified. Nathan's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. The judge continued. A criminal investigation into the events surrounding Mrs. Ward's disappearance will be conducted separately. For now, the court's concern is custody and the child's well-being. She tapped her gavel once and that was it. No applause. No emotional music. Just the sound of a chair sliding back and Nathan standing to leave. As he passed me, he paused for half a second, just long enough for me to hear him whisper. You won't win him. I looked up calmly. I already did. He left the courtroom without turning back. I walked out into the sun. Not triumphant. Just whole. That evening Jonah and I sat on the porch together. He had his knees pulled up to his chest, arms wrapped around them, staring at the sky as it deepened from gold to blue. He didn't say much. He rarely did. But I'd come to learn something about silence. It's not always a punishment. Sometimes it's just space to breathe. You okay? I asked after a while. He shrugged. Yeah. Just thinking. About stuff, he said. What it'll be like now. Different, I said. But maybe better. He looked at me then, brow furrowed. Why didn't you fight harder back then? When you left? The question hit hard because there wasn't a clean answer. I think I tried, I said. In my own way. But I was scared. And tired. And I didn't know who I was anymore. He was quiet again. Then he said, You seem like you now. That made me smile. I feel like me now, I replied. Jonah reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out something small. The beaded bracelet. The one he gave back to me weeks ago. I fixed it, he said. You dropped it in the laundry room. He handed it to me like it mattered. And it did. I slid it over my wrist the same way I must have done 100 times before. Back when he was still learning how to spell his name and I was someone he trusted without question. Thanks, I said. For holding on to it. He leaned against my shoulder just briefly. 1 second of contact. But that was more than enough. That night, I lit a candle in the bedroom and stood at the window looking out into the dark yard. The swing swayed slightly in the breeze and somewhere deep inside, I imagined the carved owl watching us. Not as a warning anymore. But as a witness. I'm not the woman I was when I left. Not the woman who forgot. Not even the one who came back. I'm the one who stayed. And this time I'm not going anywhere.